Love and greetings to you. And if you're here for the first time, then I urge you to subscribe to this channel because you're going to learn so much about marriage. I'm Paul Friedman, and this is the Marriage Foundation channel. I've been doing this for over 22 years. I used to be a divorce mediator. I worked with couples after that on the ground live. I've been there. I know what's going on. I've seen it all. This topic is an especially important topic because of how much is misunderstood about this topic. This topic is, how can I get my wife to open up sexually? I'm going to add to that and give me some ideas of what I'm doing wrong. Okay? So let's get into sex first. Let's understand it in the context of your marriage, because it is nothing like what it is in any other venue. We are souls, we have bodies, we have minds, but we are essentially spiritual. This is not a religious conversation. I am merely telling you what actually is. This is an as-built. You are a soul, you have a body, you have a mind. Your mind is a computer. It's a functional tool. It is no different than your liver or your pancreas, your stomach, or any other organ, except we identify as our minds, and that's a problem, but we'll go there later. We also have a body. The body, of course, it's created. Of course, essentially it's spiritual in that regard, but in the land of biology, which is where it falls, it is a biological entity. It is something we possess. You're not your body. Your wife is not her body. So we have to understand, first of all, the relationship between our body, our mind, and us, our soul. And we have to understand what sex is, and then it becomes pretty obvious what you'll need to do and what you've been doing wrong. So first, let's get into what sex is. Biologically, because there's levels, biologically, it is nature's way of creating more human beings. And that's it. It is a function. It's not wonderful. It's not a Beavis and Butthead thing. It is merely a biological methodology. And the body releases enzymes to tell the mind that it wants to have sex for the purpose of procreation, because procreation is merely a tier under self-preservation, because self-preservation is what drives every living thing, from the single cell to the complex body of a human being. That's it. Nature's way of increasing the population, nothing more. Okay? Can you handle that? Sure. But as human beings, we have this consciousness that wants to find a higher purpose. Really, a higher purpose for everything. Unfortunately, we are not guided in our youth to recognize what a higher purpose even means. So, the highest purpose for a human being are two things. Love, which is something that only we as human beings can experience. Please don't get me into arguments with you about your cat or your dog. I know your cat and dog loves you, but it's a different kind of love. Love is the ultimate experience for a human being. A great illustration of this is when you first fell in love with your soulmate, with your wife, and your heart, not your mind, exploded, and you were just taken off guard. You couldn't even believe it. The you that couldn't believe it was the mind. The mind has no capacity to experience love. It's only a machine, a possession. But you know, you the soul, recognize that love was whoa. And that's why you wanted to be with your wife forever and ever. Now, let's go back. The body is driving the mind to have sex because it wants to procreate. On the other side of the equation, it's not actually the equation, I'll call it on the other side of the room, the real you is in love with your wife because she's your soulmate, and it connects up here on this level that transcends body and mind. It's not body and mind that experience love. You getting this? So, because human beings are sophisticated consciousnesses, and we are looking always for an elevated state, and because we weren't taught that that elevated state is purely a spiritual state of love, and that that happiness that is derived from love is also spiritual, we allowed our minds to translate sex into this cool thing that you could have many positions, and have you tried that, and have you tried this, and how did that make you feel? The word sophisticated in that context is total BS. All it's doing is looking at a grain of sand and becoming mesmerized with it and all of that, because that part of us is merely physical, and because it's physical, mental, which includes emotional. So that's what's going on. And then the world grasps onto that, because we don't live in a very spiritual world, and Hollywood then defines high heels and, big breasts and shapely legs and long hair or short, whatever turns you on kind of thing, and it becomes a whole deal. The problem is that it's a whole deal that has nothing to do with your love. Illustration. God forbid something happens to your wife, impossible physically, physiologically, for her to have sex. Do you leave her? No. And so then we have to go, okay, why not? Well, because you're connected through love and loyalty. Love and loyalty. Spiritual. So what happens is now you are in this marriage, very much uneducated, miseducated by TV sitcoms and movies and magazines and all of that stuff and current thinking, and you're going, wow, my wife is a cold fish. She won't open up to me sexually. So now let's talk about you and her psychophysiologically. The male's sex drive is governed by the body's drive to procreate. Can we accept that? We don't want to have love with our wives because we want to express love naturally, not at our state of consciousness. We want to have sex with our wives because our body is telling us that we want to. Right. Why? Because its job, as governed by nature, is to propagate the species. And when do we want to have sex? Well, There is purpose to all this. 24/7, 365 days a year, except on leap year, then it's 366. Why? Because a woman's biological, psychophysiological drive is much different than ours. She's driven primarily after you get married. Before you get married, there's a different reason. But after you get married, it's so she can have babies. She's the one carrying them. So when does she want to have sex as dictated to by her body? When her eggs are ready to be fertilized. This is all scientific and simple, isn't it? Now, we don't want to be reduced by our bodies, told what to do by our bodies, especially in this case, because you ain't going to get any. So what happens is we have to now say, okay, is there another way? The answer is yes. The other way is by lifting our marriage up, our relationship up, our relationship with our soulmate up to the level of soulmate. And then the conundrum becomes an equation. Because what happens is, now that you're not demanding sex in the mind, you don't even have to do it outwardly. What's going to happen is you're going to open this field of love on this higher plane of consciousness that naturally is supposed to exist between the two of you in your marriage, and she will want to connect with you on this higher plane of love and use her body to do it. So, how do you do it? You just got the big preliminary stuff, so now you want the real deal, right? Well, how do you do it? Number one, you take the preliminary stuff seriously. You recognize that a car doesn't fly and you don't drive a plane on the highway. This is how we are constructed, and you can't fight it. You can rise above this mundane level of psychophysiology, and that is how you do it. What does that mean in practice? Well, it starts with that understanding and making sure. See, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take you in steps. Because the first step is removing the current obstacles that are in her way of opening up to you sexually. And this is where, and what have I been doing wrong, comes into play. So, and I'm not saying you've been doing this wrong, but these are the normal wrong things. The biggest normal wrong thing are the guys who go, you're my wife. You're supposed to have sex with me. Really? How would that go over if the roles were reversed and it wasn't about sex? You're my husband and you're supposed to wash the dishes. I'm just throwing that out. We all know men aren't supposed to wash dishes. That was a joke. And so what happens is, when you are demanding of her, and it doesn't matter whether it's sex or anything else, her walls are going to go up. She is not going to want to. Or another big thing that men do is they go, I have my needs. You don't know how hard it is for me. And if you use that, she'll never know how hard it is ever, because again, you're being a victim. That doesn't fly with people. You got to use common sense. So those are a couple of things you're doing wrong. Another thing that a lot of guys do wrong is they behave nicely for the day. In other words, differently from how you normally behave. And then your expectation is pushing on her. And you know women are so intuitive. She is not stupid. She knows what's going on. And in some cases, some women are willing to trade off. They're willing to give up a little sex, and I'm using that crude terminology, just to get her husband to act nicely towards her. Here's the deal, guy. You gotta behave like you love her all the time. Remember how you were with her when you first got together. Not even before you got married, because a lot of men and a lot of women drift down into normal behavior even before they tie the knot. They treat each other like crap. You cannot say, let's start treating each other like we did when we were dating, because it won't work. But you can start treating her like you did before you ever had sex. Treat her with love, real love. Treat her with respect that is based on how much you love her, and treat her like she's your queen. Now, that's a handful, and I'll tell you why it's a handful, and I discovered this the hard way. I didn't just go, when I was a divorce mediator, I didn't just go, I think I'll start saving marriages instead. It wasn't like that. I really believed in divorce when I was a divorce mediator. I thought you essentially get tired of someone, you find someone else. Why not? And besides, no marriage is happy. Men are not getting enough, women are not getting enough of something else. No one's happy. And then I had a couple who asked me to help them save their marriage. And by the way, my practice was lucrative. Being a divorce mediator, you make a lot of money because there's a lot of business out there. And this couple asked me to help them save their marriage. Kind of caught me off guard. And I went, okay, I'll try it. Give me a few months. I want to look into marriage. I talked to my therapist friends, the one who sent me business. They said, well, just listen to their complaints, try to help them work through it. You're a communication expert. Go ahead and give them some tips on how to communicate better and like that. And it didn't click for me. So then I thought, you know what? And I didn't think this immediately. It took a while. My mind doesn't operate quickly. I thought, wait a minute. Why do we get married in the first place? What is our desire? What is it that we're trying to achieve? And I didn't know the answer. And my friends, my family, people I met at Starbucks didn't know the answer either. And finally, I realized we all get married just to be happier. That's the only reason we get married. And what brings you the most happiness? It's love. Well, that works. Love, happiness, and harmony. And so I finally met with my first couple. And I said, okay, let's turn this into binary. You have two options every time you're about to think something, every time you're about to say something, every time you're about to do something. It's binary choice. And so make it a binary choice. Is what I'm thinking beneficial or detrimental? And so forth. And so I met with the couple, and I'm going to call him John, came back a few weeks later and said, your stuff is great. This is true. This is real. But I can't do it. He said, I am having trouble controlling my thoughts. And I thought, oh, I know about that because I had an anger problem that I was working on since the 90s. This was like 2001. And it was like, at the best I could do was hold my anger in. I didn't believe in anger management. That stuff doesn't work. I never got rid of it. And so I went to my source. And I said, Lord, what do I do with this? And he downloaded a solution. Now, I told you all these things you can do, all these things you shouldn't do, and you'll want to, and you'll try it. But guess what's going to happen? Your mind is not going to cooperate because it is a bundle of habits. It is a bundle of instinctive reactions. And just because you want to do something, your mind is not going to allow it. Right? And so, think about all the, I can't tell you how much I have been wanting to lose weight, and I can't. You look at me and go, well, you're not so fat. Yeah, but it's a point of controlling the mind. And then he gave me what I call the so technique. What do you call the so technique? I don't care how you term it. Stop the mind in its tracks. Because one of the things that gets us into trouble is the momentum of the mind, of the thought, of the reaction. So stop. Next, evaluate. E, evaluate. Which way do I go? Next is wisdom. Your action should be based in wisdom. Wisdom is always love. And so I developed this so technique, made it palatable. It's part of our course for men. It's also in the course for women, but you'd only be interested in the course for men. And it is transforming. It is a huge thing. You can't do it right away. It takes time. It took me a long time to learn how to download it to other people. But we do that now with our course. And that, if what I'm sharing with you about your wife opening up sexually isn't enough here in this video, then getting the course for men is going to help you a great deal. It might be enough for you. So, how do you get her to open up sexually? Number one, you behave like you did before you had sex the first time. It's a different person, isn't it? Look back, it's a different person. And you recognize that when you're married, sex is not the same as before you're married, or when you're doing it with someone who you're not married to before you found each other, in that it is one of the best bridges for conveying love. But if you're approaching it, and she knows how you're approaching it, for the purpose of getting off, or probably just getting off, it's a turnoff for her. Love is never a turnoff, but you can't fake it, and that's the biggest problem. You literally want to change this, you literally have to change you. I'm just telling you the truth. Have we seen it happen? Yes. Does it happen immediately? No. It's a progressive thing where you gain mastery over your mind so that you can behave in these ways without being a total hypocrite liar. Because women can see all that. And that's how you do it. And that's how you do it. And the reason why it works is because women are naturally open with their heart. Nature didn't make us so open with our heart. Women are, because they're the ones who carry the children. So don't act like a child, because that's not going to get her to have sex with you. But that's how you do it. I hope this was helpful. So if you're a therapist or clergy and you want to become part of the TMF team, we have a course for you, the TMF Marriage Counselor Training Course, and we'd love for you to sign up and do marriage counseling the right way. You definitely should subscribe to our channel, because that's going to help you tremendously. And please like this video, leave a comment if you want, and I know that this is going to get really positive comments, because everything that I've shared with you is like clearly truthful and real. And where else do you find that these days? So again, I'm Paul Friedman. I founded the Marriage Foundation. I'm so glad you stopped by. God bless you, and take care.